Hi, I'm going to talk about the beginning of our startup Happypillar and how we went from an idea to some beta tests as quickly as possible, and kind of scrappily, to basically show what the product could be to potential customers and kind of see if they'd be interested. So I'll tell the beginning of the story, which is that I had a kid, my 5-year-old, who was then 4, was having a lot of challenges, behavior challenges, probably related to the craziness of being a kid in the pandemic. I was really interested in helping him, and I talked to his doctor about therapy. I did a certain type of therapy called parent-child interaction therapy. It's not like crazy different from any therapy that you're familiar with. CBT is part of it, which I'm sure you've all heard of. I did this one, parent-child interaction therapy, PCIT, that was specifically for young kids, and it really helped all the challenges we were having. So, like him ignoring my directions and requests, meltdowns and tantrums over small things, like all the sort of general kid problems that parents have, I had, and this therapy really helped with. One of the parts of this therapy is like a daily at home exercise you do with your child. And in that daily exercise, they have studied this therapy and they know that saying a certain number of things in a specific way, a certain number of times, is evidence clinically proven to reduce child issues like anxiety, mood, depression, behavior problems, outbursts, all of that. So the therapist taught us, my partner and I, how to do this daily exercise at home with the kid and what to say and how to set it up. And then we would do it every day. And then once a week, we'd go into our therapy session and we'd do one go of it for the therapist. And we'd spend the rest of the time talking about it. In the exercise, you're supposed to describe what your child is doing 10 times. You're supposed to echo back what they say 10 times. Your goal is 10. You are supposed to play alongside them and really do what they're doing, describe, echo, and give them what is called labeled praise. But in the 5 minutes that I did with the therapist watching, she would listen, and she was trained on a special coding manual, and she would write down like, okay, you got 6 descriptions, trying to get to 10. So this week, focus on those. And so she really was listening to what we were saying and giving us quite quantitative feedback on how to get better at these mindfulness sessions with the kid. There are 3 things you're not supposed to do in those 5 minutes. They're totally normal things to do in life, but in those 5 minutes, you avoid them to help stay calm and mindful. And those things are asking questions, giving commands, and giving anything that sounds like criticism, including no, stop, and don't. Here's some ways to restate your phrases as questions. Your phrases that are questions, rephrase as statements. You said no and stop a lot of times and wasn't necessary. And these anyway, so she's listening to what we're saying and giving quantitative. She would write in an Excel spreadsheet, and then she'd share her screen and be like, all right, here's all your counts. And I was like, okay, the way she's labeling all our sentences and giving us these counts really reminds me of the conversational AI, dialogue management, and AI algorithms that I was working with in my role as a head of customer success at a conversational AI company called Rasa. Yeah, I was like, okay, what she's doing here, the most beneficial thing I get from her, that she can give is like the coaching afterwards, like, here's how you did, here's how you can do better. The listening to me and telling me, what things I hit, like a robot could probably do that and maybe help her focus on what I'm doing more than like counting my words, etc. I didn't really know what it was, all like nebulous ideas in my head, but I was like, this could be something we could do with AI. And longer story shorter, I talked to who is now my co-founder, who was then just my dear friend at work, Maddie, who was an AI engineer. And I was like, hey, I don't know what this could be, but this particular therapy and how it works really lends itself well to conversational AI. Once we had, over the course of a couple of weeks, realized that A, we can make this into technology, B, we can deliver this technology to parents who can't afford the intensive therapy that I did, but maybe could get some of the benefit of it from a robot version. And C, that, I assumed parents might want it because I knew I wanted something. We decided, okay, we're going to start a startup. We're going to build this out and we're going to see how it works. The very first thing we kind of wanted to know is, do parents actually want this? Because once we had kind of come up with the technology, there are a lot of ways to use this. It could be something that therapists run while they're doing their sessions. It could be something we sell to parents. It could be technology that is not used within therapy, is used somewhere else. But, we wanted to know, like, who's going to pay for this, who has the problem, and they're going to buy it. And I felt really strongly that parents, if told that they could get therapy for their kid, or a therapeutic tool, coach, whatever, and if I could like highlight the pain points that we're all having and say, hey, I think we can help with these, that they would be interested. But we also didn't want to spend like money or time building something huge to just test out, are parents going to be interested in this? I also didn't want to do the thing that everyone does, because it feels kind of, I didn't want to do it, of just like saying what the thing would be and getting a bunch of email waitlist things. Because I was like, that is not enough data for me, because I feel really confident that if I said, hey, parents, do you want access to a tool that's going to help with tantrums, meltdowns, stress in your kid, mood issues in your kid, keep your kid's mental health healthy? I knew a lot of them were going to say yes. So like, I didn't feel like I needed to prove a mailing list in that way. So I was like, I want to see if they're going to actually use a thing every day, the way I did my therapy every day. So the first thing I did, I said to myself, like, what do I want this thing to be? And I thought what I wanted was that someone would get a text every day. They fill out a form that checks in on their kid's behavior every single day. Because in the therapy, I would do a check-in every time I did the therapy. I was like, okay, let me make a Typeform that I text to people who are interested, and they take a look at it and answer the questions and see if they'll do that every day. So I made a Typeform, and I was like, time for the Happypillar check-in. And I looked at some of the questions I was getting asked in therapy, and I was like, basically a lot of what an app is, or a lot of what any interactive website or web app is some form of a form. You're putting some data into an app, and then getting something that's input, and then there's processing, and then there's output. So I was like, what's the input I'm going to want people to put in? Some questions about their kids. And I was like, yeah, this is what I was doing in therapy. So let me, make it an app. And then I was like, okay. And then it would remind you to start your happy time, and you would do it with your kid. And then I looked at that, and I was like, this is not what I want to see if they'll do. I don't care if they're going to fill out a form every day. I want to see if they're going to spend 5 minutes with their kid every day regularly and check into an app that is telling them to do that and how to do it. So that was what the therapy is 5 minutes a day. So Typeform wasn't doing it for me. And also Typeform made me a little worried about, there's no HIPAA compliance. And even though like we're not really storing anything that important, I knew that if I was going to ask parents to give information at all about their kids, I'd want to be able to say it was HIPAA compliant. So I Googled HIPAA compliant forms, and first sponsored ad was Jotform. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this one. They have monthly pricing, and I wasn't sure how long I was going to do this. So I did just monthly, and HIPAA compliance at that time was definitely less than 64 a month. I think the silver had HIPAA compliance. So I was paying about $30 a month. And I was like, okay, I'm going to play with Jotforms. So I had an intake form, and I was like, I'm going to need to get information about people who want to do this with me. So I made an intake form with name, email, phone number if you wanted text reminders. This is something I eventually built in, and I'll explain that in a second. Child's name, when your child was born. And then I had some general intake questions that I believe I set up to be on the second page, or they eventually got hidden when I moved these into what Jotform called their app. But I started with this, and then I went into a bunch of Facebook groups, and I said, hey, like, for example, I went into ATX Working Moms, a small Facebook group. I called it My Startup. I had the idea 1 month prior. We founded this. We incorporated April 4th, 2022. So like very early. My startup is recruiting a total of 50 families. We wanted to start with 50 to beta test our app/therapy program. developed with a licensed clinical therapist and reviewed by psychologists. I had asked my friend who is a therapist to do all the content, and another friend of mine who was a psychologist to look at it. And we were like, we're going to make it happen on Friday. We opened the books for this yesterday and we had 35 spots left. So I think I did it in a different group the day before and got 15 people. And we were all like, we want, am I doing the math right there? 15, 10. Yeah, we want 50. So I posted in a bunch more groups. I got 46 comments on this one. And I got about 30 to 40 in every group I posted in. I posted it in about 5 groups. And I did this before I'd even made anything. I was just like, this is kind of the version of the email waiting list that I wanted. I wrote a little FAQ as part of this. It's going to say it's not found because it's no longer published. But yeah, basically I had people sign up and I had, you can see it over here, but I had 92 people sign up. We wanted 50, but I had 92. So I was like, okay, when this starts on Friday, I'm going to need them to get something. So I played around with Jotform. So first, what I was like is, what's the input that they're going to do every day, their everyday happy time? I basically was like, they're going to look at a lot of different forms. So I played around with Jotform. So first thing, I was like, I want them every day to do 5 minutes of happy time. So in Jotform, I really just played on the build page, and I was like, what am I going to want them to do every day? Is there a timer in Jotform? At the time, they had something called widgets, which I think they probably still do. But I was like, okay, what are some things? I basically was like, if my app were a form that you just filled out on a website, what do I want them to be putting in? Started with name of the child doing happy time, because I was like, maybe people will have more than one child. Time, what is time? Oh, that was the time of the day. I was like, okay, that won't work for me. A spinner, a submit button. Okay, yeah, I want a submit button. Yeah, and I was just like, what are the things I want? We made a YouTube video that parents would watch when they started, which I will show you actually in a second. And then in widgets at the time, there was a timer thing. So I was like, oh, we can set a timer and tell them how, that they're going to spend 5 minutes doing this. And then I saw in widgets, which I somehow no longer can show you right now, they also had a voice recording widget, a voice recorder that gives us, I played around with it, a wave form, or not a waveform, a wave recording that we could eventually play around with and or use as seed data for our large language models. Basically, I was like, okay, we have a form. And then I was like, I want them to have access in this form to all of the things that I want them to know about in Happypillar. So a weekly check-in, that nice not now cheat sheet, like a YouTube video. And in playing with Jotform, I discovered they have something called apps. It's a little bit of a misnomer because these are not actually apps. They are just websites that are set up to look good on mobile. And when the website is opened for the first time on a user's phone, a pop-up comes up that says, would you like to make a shortcut on your homepage for this app? You can make, here we go. You can make any website add to home screen, and it kind of looks like an app on the home screen, which is effectively what we made. We made a website that people could add to their home screen like an app. So I was like, oh, great. That's what we're going to do with Jotform. So I made the app in Jotform. So on a phone, you could start a happy time and go to that happy time form that I showed you guys. I don't know. I left in these funny submit buttons and this QR code. That's not what it looked like back then. At the end of the whole beta, I popped a survey in here where people could say how it went. Learn how. We made a phone-sized YouTube video with a bunch of FAQs. This was all super like janky. We just wanted something to get on their phones real quick. When they watched this on their phone and they pressed this full screen button, it went to full screen on their phone, but it was phone sized and shaped in YouTube. So it looked like a full screen video. It was beautiful.
If you're testing Happypillar.
Oh my God, this
you are
looks
going
like
to be
anymore.
spending 5 minutes a day of one-on-one time with your child.
Wow.
You may have other children, but make sure this time is individual of this program.
So I didn't know what the app would look like. So I made a little GIF in Canva.
Things like Play-Doh or criticism does not. The eye.
This is so funny. So yeah, we basically made them
Hi,
a
see
video
more of.
for yeah, how to use Happypillar. You are enough, keep going. Okay, this was funny. And yeah, they could read all their questions. And then they would go back to the homepage. That was learn how. We had a weekly check-in that is disabled, so you can't see it. We wanted to have a stats and data page in the app. We do now, but we didn't then, but we wanted them to see that we would. So we said, for the purposes of alpha testing, your stats and reports will be emailed to you on April 29th, 1 week after the program ends. So that's what we did. We made a PDF for everyone. Let's see if I can find one we made for my friend Susie. So we said, thank you again. Oh, we sent an email that was like, this is disorganized, sorry. We said, here's what we need for this alpha. Who signed up, what we need from you, how will it work, etc. We were in stealth. Wow, this is so crazy. March 6th. So a week after, we said thank you for participating in the alpha. So on May, we were a little late, May 6th. Feedback from the trial. We made a PDF for everyone with their behavior progress, their scores for each day. Basically what we wanted the app to be. Gosh, watching this is making me so nostalgic for things we did and experiments we ran, even though we weren't tracking them as experiments. And yeah, so we were like, hey, we won't have stats, but you'll get them eventually. Homepage, you could set up SMS reminders. And that was the second page of the intake where you got to say what your phone number was and when you would like to get reminders. But basically, yeah, we wanted an app where you could record your session with your kid, watch a video about how to do it, check on your stats, do your weekly check-ins, and get SMS reminders. So most of that was accomplished with various Jotforms linked on a Jotform app. So Happy Time was a form, weekly check-in was a form, asking to set up SMS reminders is a form, stats and data and learn how were just pages with YouTube and text, and take our survey by the end was a form. And we texted everyone who was part of it to take a survey. And then we sent them their PDF. So we made this, got 100 people at various times to use it. And we iterated. So I think at first we had one video and it was really long. And then we eventually made it the one that I just showed you guys, which was 7 minutes, which I think was an improvement from like the 15-minute video we had. We eventually had SMS reminders. The way we did that was we paid a little money to Twilio and I went to Zapier. And I set up daily text reminders to do Happy Time. So every day, people would get a 6 p.m. reminder. I paid them $20 for $20 worth of texts. And I made a bit.ly that went right to the web app. So it would pull up this page on your phone. And I sent that every day at 6. And then I got feedback that people were like, hey, you're sending it to me every day at 4 my time. My kid's not home from daycare. And I was like, oh, crap, I know people in California. So we ran a second alpha where we gave people 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times that they could choose from. I gave them 5 times of day that they could choose. And I put them in all the different time zones. And then the phone number I would put the phone number that had chosen X time of day into this list. So then they would get it at whatever time of day they had chosen, which was in my case, like 4 p.m. Central was the earliest you could get it, which would be 2 p.m. whatever. Then you could get it an hour later, an hour later, an hour later, an hour later, an hour later. So you had 6 times you could choose from. Obviously, what we learned from that is people want their reminders to come at their own time. Probably could have guessed that, but it was nice to know that they cared enough about their daily reminders to reschedule them. And yeah, I used Zapier and Twilio to do daily notifications. I used Jotform to record the voice, etc. I used Canva and Veed and YouTube to teach them how to use our app. Jotform was HIPAA compliant, so that felt good. Made them some PDFs in Canva and various things to send out afterwards. I used Zapier a lot for this. So for number 1, if they would take that onboarding survey that I showed in Facebook to do the alpha test, they would then get a welcome email, which I think I showed you the welcome email. 2 minutes later that was like, hey, thanks for agreeing to be part of the program. We'll be in touch soon with more details. That's what we said. Thanks for agreeing to be, oh, so I got their kid's name and I used their name. This is my husband. Thanks for agreeing to join the Happypillar Alpha test cohort. We appreciate your willingness to try this out at its earliest stage. We're hard at work building out the alpha and we'll be in touch soon with more details. In the meantime, please enjoy this image for a laugh. What is it? It's hard to imagine that we'll miss this one day. Yeah, that's accurate. This really also looks like me, my husband, and our kid. That's funny. So yeah, this is what we sent to everyone who set it up. We sent it from a Gmail that we made. God, I had only come up with this thing like a week before. And we just wanted to, make a thing. And by April 1st, we had an app in Jotform that was texting you every day to use Happypillar. So yeah, that took us 4 weeks. Probably could have taken me less time if I A, didn't have my regular job, and then B, I had kids in the evening. So I wasn't even really able to start on this until like 9 p.m. Also, Jotform apps allow you to log in. So they would have their Gmail picture here. They would have, it says my forms, but it would have all of the things they had filled out. Yeah, it looks a lot better on your actual phone, but yeah, they could do this on their phone, computer, and tablet. Honestly, this could have been our app for a long time if we needed it to be. But we do natural language processing, and after you do your happy time, you're supposed to get some stats, and we needed that to be automated. So at some point we had to build out an app, so we did that. But this was a totally usable MVP very quickly. And it showed us that hundreds of parents wanted to use it. I did, in the end, 3 Facebook posts. So one in one group, one in that ATX group, and one in the third group. And I got 100 parents from just those 3 groups. And that was, I limited myself. I said I wanted 50. I chose 100 that could do it, but I definitely had more comments than 100. I think in all, I amassed an email list of 400 just doing that. And as I mentioned earlier, email was not my goal. Yeah, that's how we made a Jotform app. You have to pay for a few tools. I've definitely paid for Zapier, Twilio, Jotform, Canva Pro. I got a Gmail. Yeah, I think that's all I paid for. So all in all, let's say it costs 30. Canva Pro is probably another 30. That's 60. The email address is free. Zapier, I didn't need a pro account at that point. And Twilio, I spent $20 for the phone number and the topping up the amount for texts. That's 30, 60, 80. I'm trying to think if I spent money on anything else. I think I spent about $100 to spin this all up. And honestly, if you're not doing kid data, you probably don't need pro for any of the things I paid for. So Jotform Pro felt right for me because I could say it was HIPAA certified, which I did start putting in places. You no longer can, it would have a little logo here that said HIPAA, whatever, HIPAA safe. When I paid for that. So I think that really helped parents like say like, okay, I'm okay with using this. So yeah, you could probably do this all for free, but I threw $100 into it. And now we've raised $1 million as a startup. So it paid for itself, I'd say. This was how I did it. We had an app, we had this app set up within a few weeks. We had 400 people on the wait list within a few weeks. So yeah, in 4 weeks, we went from, I had the idea in February. We decided to do it at the end of February. We incorporated in April after we had started running the alpha and seeing that people were interested. I think we could have done this in a week or 2 if I didn't have those kids draining my time and schedule and stuff. My biggest thing with this was just like move fast and try something. I learned a lot. I learned people do it every day. I learned that people rely on a daily reminder and they like it to be when they want it. I learned that at the end, I learned that they wanted to get more information from the app. Like it was a reminder, but they all said like, we really want this stats and data page, which is why we put it into the alpha 2, because we wanted them to know like the eventual goal is to have this. So, you're testing it so that we can make that eventually. Because yeah, April 29th was alpha 2. We did one quick alpha in early March with some friends, just like my husband, my parent friends. I think we did, that was like 10 people. I think we were calling that alpha 0 actually. And maybe this was 1, and then there was a 2. These were 2 and 3 week alphas. And we did like little cohorts. So like alpha 1, I think had 2 cohorts, and alpha 2 had like 3 cohorts where they did it for 3 weeks. And we told them like, hey, you just have to use this app at least 4 times a week for 3 weeks with your kid. And and they were into it. And then we were like, okay, we have something here. Yeah, that's how I made a Jotform to start the app. Do you have questions?
I really only had like 2 or 3 questions for you. I felt like you did a really good job going through how you did it. I'm especially amped about this because I'm sort of like on an experimentation kick right now, particularly a cheap experimentation kick. So
You
we
think
love
my
this. Yes, first question was I'd love to hear sort of like one quick more about your experience using the Jotform. Like, what did it feel like to have users using it? How could you tell when you were learning something? Like, what pace of the learning? Like, give me the play by play.
So we had a daily use app. So I was learning things every day. I would get excited. Had an email sent to me every time a new form had a submission. So whenever I got an email that said someone submitted a form, meaning they did their daily happy time, I was like, oh, cool. They're using it. Then I really got more feedback from various people who did this alpha who knew me, who would send me a text or a Facebook message saying like,
You're like,
I'm
here's how it
getting
was.
my notifications at 4 p.m. It's 6 for you guys in Texas, but it's 4 for me in California. How do we change that?
Yeah.
Beginning, I just, for that particular person, started texting her myself at 4. But then I was like, we're going to do a whole other alpha with 50 people. Let's build out a Zapier that lets them at least choose a general time of day.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pace was daily because it was a daily app and because I was sending daily text messages reminding them to use the app.
Yep.
That was huge, whether it's email or text. I needed to know about their engagement almost regardless of whether they use it organically. I just wanted to know more about their use. And I didn't really care if it was because I texted them or because they like loved it so much.
Yeah.
So yeah. Texting them every day helped. I don't think I ever went through a period where I did not remind them to use it every day because I also knew we're asking them to use it for 3 weeks and I want them to use it 4 times a week for 3 weeks. And I don't want to get through the 3 weeks and find out that they didn't use it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I learned things daily.
Interesting. One of the things that struck me in your story was my understanding of current Happypillar is that the stats is a huge part of sort of the feedback. And so
Totally.
I thought it was really cool and interesting that y'all launched without that. I'm curious, like, what you were learning about the user experience, given that you launched without such a sort of core piece.
So I knew that the feedback from my therapist was helpful in doing the thing, but I also knew that the 5 minutes of happy time was helpful in changing the behavior of my kid.
Yeah.
So, and I
Regardless
also
of the
knew that if
feedback.
I said, hey, this is an app that helps with X, Y, and Z, that a lot of parents would be interested in that.
Yeah.
So the experiments that I was looking at here were how much are people interested in this as a concept?
Yep.
How willing are they going to be to sit down and play with their kid and press
For
record,
5
regardless of
minutes.
what information they get? Because
Oh,
those
interesting.
stats that you see, that's a feature, not an outcome. So I really wanted to sell them on the outcome. The outcome is that if you do this regularly, your kids' mood and anxiety and behavior and everything will improve. And I'm having that problem now with pitching that I'll be like, we have gamification techniques like scores and daily reminders, streak tracking, and immediate feedback. That's like the magic moment for a technician or a technological person being like, oh, this is why this is different from, another app. But it is not necessarily a huge part of why a parent is going to want to use Happypillar. I mean, eventually they're like, oh, wow, it's really cool that you can tell me how I did and how my kid is doing. But those are all in means to an end. And the end is a regulated and happy kid. So that was the goal with using the app. I think maybe for Show Me, it's something similar. It's like, oh yeah, it's cool that I can set a video watching goal. It's cool that I can scrub through, but my end goal is a better startup.
100%.
And if you're telling me with great startup, like that's what I'm going to pay for. And if you can help me more than any other thing can help me, and the outcome is going to be a successful startup. So yeah, that was really what I was trying to prove with this, is that parents want a great outcome for their kid. I did get at the end of one of the alphas, when I sent a survey that was like, how sad would you be if you couldn't use this? Most people were like, not that sad. It was a timer, and I love what I learned from it, but I wouldn't be sad if I couldn't use this app. And that let me know exactly what you're saying, which is like, the app itself is not providing enough value for people to use past 2 or 3 weeks. So we need it to do more than just that. And we know that, and still iterating on like what's helpful, like having some courses in the app, we're working on personalization. So if you get certain scores, you see certain videos, like all of that we know. And now we're figuring out the product fit, because we know there's an interest. We know people are signing up, they're wanting to
Totally.
try it.
You know, there's a problem. You know, they're excited about this solution
Exactly.
roughly. Yeah,
Exactly.
100%.
So yeah, that's what we were proving, is that, do people care about this problem? Will they sign up for something to try and solve it? And will they try to use it regularly to do that? And that's what we
Yeah.
proved.
Cool. That's super interesting. And in recruiting people from Facebook groups, had you previously been active in the Facebook groups? Was this your first post? How did that work?
In all of these groups, I had been around for a while, and I'm generally an active Facebook user. And I think that's sort of how I knew that parents are having the same problems that I'm having.
Yeah.
And I also knew that like parents are not often searching for the solution to their problem. They're often searching for their problem, either in a Facebook group or even in Google.
Oh,
They're
that's-
not searching for therapy app. They're not searching for therapy. They're searching for tantrums. They're searching for 3-year-old bedtime routine issues. They're searching for the problem, because none of us know the solution. The solutions are constantly changing, and solution for kid A is not solution for kid B. Solution
Totally.
for kid at 3 is not often the solution at 3.5. So I knew from my engagement in Facebook mom apps about my market and how they look for support and how they solve their problems. They know solutions might exist, but they search for the problem. So
Yeah.
yes, I've been active in some of I posted in 3 groups, or I used to say 2 groups, but I think it was 2. So I started with just friends and family. Then I posted in one group that was the 2017 babies that listened to X podcast. Um, very active in that one, and I knew they'd support me. And then I
Yeah.
posted ATX working moms, because I was like, I'm semi-active in this one. I know people post in it, and I know these moms are busy. So I was pretty active in these groups, but that was more how I learned about my market, not so much how I got feedback to join the app from the group. So I think if you're watching this and you're like, how do I get customers? You think about what made you know that the customers have this problem. And I was like, I know because I'm seeing them discuss it in Facebook groups. If you were like, I know because I'm talking to my colleagues about it at work and we talk about it all the time, then that's maybe where you go
Totally.
to find the beta customers.
Yeah, I like that a lot. What were the comments like in the post? You said there were 46 or something
I'm
crazy.
not going to share because there are people's
people's names.
names and like their problems, but please send information over. Wow, I would love to participate. Sent you a DM, would love information. I'm interested as a participant. My child is 5. How do I sign up? Interested. I'd love to. I'm UX designer and would love to provide feedback. Can you use the app for more than one kid? We didn't even have an app. I'm interested. I'm also a BCBA, so interesting to me both as a mom and as a professional. My child has autism. Would we qualify? Are you taking investors? A lot of tags of other people. So just tagging other people's names, being like, hey, looks like you might like this. This looks awesome. I have a 2-year-old son. I'm moving to South Austin next week. Let's chat. More tagging of names. So yeah, that's what people were saying.
Wow, that's awesome. That's just so like positive and interested. I imagine that felt incredible.
It did. It also sort of felt like at that point it was so new, and I knew I was like, yeah, I know moms need this. So that was sort of before I realized that a lot of people in startups are having to prove an interest. I sort of took that for granted because I
Totally.
kind of, all we talk about is
You're like,
children are like losing their minds and stressed out and how to improve their lives, or how they're not eating, or they are eating, they're eating too much, they're only eating this food. Like all we talk about is our kids' issues and how we solve them. So I sort of do that. So it
you
didn't,
sort of knew.
I mean, it felt like, yeah, I knew this.
Yeah, that's
Could have
amazing.
told you that. Like, so
Interesting.
I later learned that a lot of startups are like confirming that people want to solve the problem that they're trying to solve.
Totally.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. And then how did you guys know when you were ready to move away from the Jotform to either next experiment or building the actual product?
I don't know that we knew. And now looking back at the Jotform, I'm kind of like, wow, we could have stuck around in that longer and replicated what we did in the Austin groups in lots of other cities and kind of built that up. We decided we wanted to like go for the real thing, like get a real app out, at least in test flight, so that people could really have it on their phones, so that we could have more data on their usage, so that we could do the thing that we thought was like the big magic moment, which is verbal feedback, or verbal, AI based feedback.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the right time. I mean, we've only been at this a year-ish. But looking back at what we made in Jotform, how quickly we did it and how cool it looks, I think we probably could have stuck around with it.
Yeah.
And I'm also realizing now that we can do we weren't tracking experiments in a great way. I now think like two things I should have been focused on way more early in the last year is revenue. I kind of like put fundraising over revenue and was like, we'll get revenue eventually.
Yeah.
Wish I had thought about that a lot more sooner, because now it's all I think about and it's
Yeah.
fun. And then B, I wish I'd thought about experiments, because if I had said to myself, 0% interest before posting in Facebook groups, posted X message in 2 Facebook groups, interest increased 300%.
Yeah.
Then I could have said, okay, this
Mhm.
is a valid experiment. I'll say, if I try this again in 3 groups that are based in Southern California with
Yeah.
the help of X friend, and I tell her where to post and what to post in, 0 interest in Southern California after 2 weeks, how much interest? So I now am like, focused experiments are the way to do it, because I probably would be doing the things that I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
how do I get more users? But if I don't think about them as experiments, it's a nebulous, slow way of doing things.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's something about experiments that just like shows you the incremental growth and really helps you drive it, and then reminds you what things you can try. Like, you're like, hey, what change do I want? I want more users. Okay, what have I done in the past that has
That
gotten
worked
me?
well for that. Totally.
So,
It
yeah.
crystallizes learnings in this really lovely
Yes.
way, helps point you
So-
in the future.
Exactly. So I'll say we did not make a concerted choice about when to move over. What we should have done is been like, our engagement in the app is low. We want better engagement. We believe that a real app in the App Store with notifications will drive engagement. So we're now going to put our energy into that. We didn't do that. We just were kind of like, I don't want to spend time on this Jotform anymore. I want a real app. And we just kind of moved with the excitement.
Yep. Maybe the last question for you. This is a tiny, tiny thing, but how did you get parents that you didn't know to bookmark it on their phone so that it was right there?
The app feature of Jotform, when you open up a Jotform app for the first time, which is really just a website,
Yeah.
has an auto pop-up that can be customized as far as the text, that is like, here's how to make this a homepage on your phone. And I don't know how, my phone is not here. I don't know if it just has an arrow that points you to what you're supposed to do, and it's kind of like a walkthrough situation,
Yeah.
or there is a what are these called? A deep link that when you click the deep link,
Actually.
pulls up the actual action of bookmarking it to your phone. I think that's probably what it is, but Jotform did that for me.
Awesome.
So
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sam. This was incredible. I'm excited to share it with everybody.
yeah, I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sam.